Now, I've talked about a tense a little bit before. You will have seen that 2 or 3 weeks ago. And here is a question which gets down to the nuts and bolts of narrative technique. And this is somebody who's wondering about the relationship between tense and genre, which I think is a very natural question to ask. I'm writing a fantasy novel. Should I write in the present tense or in the past tense? Now, like many of these Q&As on my YouTube channel, this is a question that I originally answered on Quora.com. Link is in the description below. There's a link to the original. And the reason the link is there is because I think you should read all the other answers as well as listen to mine. And that's because often with writing advice you actually need more than one answer, because the answer you need to find actually is your own. So my answer alone I don't think is going to be enough for you to find your own answer to this question over whether you should use present or past tense in your fantasy novel. But here is my answer. Most writers and most readers find the past tense easier. This is because the past tense is the tense in which we relate things that happen to us every day in most of the English-speaking world. There are a few local variations. If you come in particular from certain parts of the UK, you may well have noticed that a lot of people use the present tense to relate certain kinds of incidents that have actually happened to them recently. But there is a convention for using the present tense, and the convention for using the present tense is that it draws attention to the choice of tense. Now, there are a number of reasons why you might want to draw attention to your tense choice, but what you need to understand is that if you use the past tense, the reader won't notice. If you use the present tense, the reader will notice. You'll hear all sorts of spurious reasons why the present tense is thought to be better. They're all justifications after the fact, rationalizations of the author's natural desire to use the present tense. The asker of the original question statement is in fact a common example of this. The asker of this original question said, "My mind likes to know what's going on now and be immersed in a relevant story about the now. The moment I think it's already happened, I immediately find myself switching off and struggling to picture it." The truth is, even in real life we experience things just after they happen. Once our brain has had the chance to collate and synchronize all the information from each of our senses, all of which arrive at different speeds. The consequence is that you experience the present as a memory, and you experience the action in a book as a memory. But ultimately, my advice to authors is always the same. When it comes to the core elements of narration, so the core elements of narration including tense, but also person, voice, and more generally the way in which you characterize your narrator. If your choice doesn't feel right to you, you'll never finish your book. My priority as both an editor and as a teacher is that writers must finish writing their book. They must get to the end. So if present tense just feels right, use the present tense.